Getting my early morning started with my power walk this morning. A young man asked me a question yesterday, Gen Z young men, about advice, about life, about women, about finances that I would give younger men. I have a Gen Z young man, he's 25 years old. I also have a 30-year-old young man that I've raised. Both are doing well. So I have a history of life, which is life experience, that I can pass down to the young men. And I've been pretty much on them since the beginning. And one of the things that I see that troubles a lot of the young men, especially black young men, is the influences of culture, dysfunctional culture for the most part. Whereas your manhood and masculinity oftentimes is measured by dysfunctional things, like your ability to acquire pre-owned box. As you see all the men, even the black men my age, beat on their chest, well, I get women, as opposed to competency and your ability to do things, your discipline, your character. Those things that are valuable, they measure masculinity through dysfunctional means, or good morning, degeneracy. But at the same time, many of them, you find them quoting scriptures and God, but they talk about running through holes and stuff like that as the measure of masculinity. You see it in the music, you see it around you in the culture. And the thing about it, life, and to be successful as a young man, you have to be comfortable being uncool. A peaceful life is incredibly uncool. Incredibly uncool. I'm an uncool dude in terms of what the culture or popular opinion would think of me. I'm squared away, but I don't give a rat's ass about approval from the culture, which leads you to live a peaceful, more successful life. So we're getting started from the beginning. You have to examine what's around you and the people around you. I don't know if your situation is different, where you're raised without a strong masculine presence, because a lot of us, many of us, unfortunately, situations where we're raised single mom environment or matriarchal culture, especially in certain communities, or we've raised under the system itself that has tried to feminize and men, beating down on manhood, masculinity, and redefining it to a more egalitarian, simpish type form of masculinity. Or when they try to turn us into ultras, where they try to create this environment where our existence becomes about what's good for everybody else. And that's why a lot of men themselves walk around and they're overperforming for women, or to get access to women, and not really thinking about their own self-preservation or what's good for them. If you talk to a guy that's going through certain situations in life, he can't tell you, if you talk to him about how he's supposed to be treated or respected based upon the values that he brings to the table as a man, many guys are, not comfortable with that because of the culture that we live in. But getting back on topic, for young men, it's a very complicated environment because of the environment that you're living in and because of the men that are before you. That's why on this channel, we talk about the reality is that your uncles, your fathers my age, and men older than me, boomers, some of those guys are unconscious simps. And even the women around you are matriarchal, so they give you bad advice based upon a system in a society of what's good for women and everybody else, or this idea of pure altruism and where your life is being lived for other people. But getting back to what we're talking about, you have to be comfortable being uncool to be successful. If you look at the people around you, the popularity contests, the young men your age that are getting all the box, trust me, I could talk about this. And, I used to be an athlete. People look at me on this they forget I'm like 6'7", 6'8". But I've been on that side of the spectrum in terms of you looking at what's popular at your age, right? You see the young men popular at your age. You got to understand something about life. Life itself is a marathon, okay? And it's just like with sports, and when you're developing sports and basketball and all the other stuff. You see a young man today, and he's in this early stage of development. He's 8 years old or 7, a kid. And you see another one that's maybe, 8, 9, 10, but his skill sets are so much further ahead, and his talent is just superior. You say, man, this dude's going to be a beast. And this right here, this one over here, he's a little slow in his development. He's not as good. So you'll see that young man that looks like he needs a lot of help and a lot of work with his skill sets and his development. And you'll say, man, a lot of people will write him off and say, man, he's not going to be that good. Man, puberty hits. That dude hit some 6-7 inch growth spurt, which happened with me. And all of a sudden, that dude turned into a freak of nature just from biology. You're like, holy shit, where the hell did that come from, dude? He kept practicing. He kept working hard. Sometimes he's a late bloomer. Just like some of these guys, that's the way how life is. If you stay, keep your head down and keep the work up. And that's what happens with a lot of stuff. You see the guys around you, they might be good at this or good at that or whatever. Or certain people are accepted by the culture and they're incredibly cool in the sense of what's approved in the popularity contest. But you got to understand, life is a marathon. And oftentimes the things that make you acceptable in the culture and cool leads to a life long-term in the real world out here of misery and failure. You look at all the popular guys in high school and in your teens and early 20s, and you look at them now, and you look at how you've developed over time, you'll understand that the things that you experience in life are temporary. Don't let temporary things of not achieving the things that you want in the moment make you make permanent decisions about the type of person you decide to be in relationship with, or your financial decision, which gets us into the most important topic. Discipline itself is the most critical component. Discipline, in my opinion, is just as or more important than game. I can teach you, you can learn all the skill sets in life about money, about game, about anything else. If you don't have discipline or you don't feel good about yourself, your self-esteem is compromised. What I see a lot of young men do is what I consider, a lot of it matriarchal culture, is I call it peacocking for women, showing material goods. I know the rappers and the culture, that's why you have to be able to turn your back on the culture, is telling you that, to show extravagant things, or you ain't tricking if you got it, or all these other things that is promoted in the culture. And all that is from a position of low self-esteem, because you think that the reason why you're performing like that for her is because you think she's better than you. You're performing, you've been convinced in this culture because of feminism, because of this culture of beating down on men and, or this dysfunctional culture, matriarchal culture, where you see the kids that act a fool get rewarded with access, you see? But the problem with that is, look at their lives. Dude be, 23 years old with 3-4 kids, getting locked up for child support, in and out of jail, whatever else. Temporary access and temporary winning does not help anybody in the distance, okay? Good morning, how you doing? So the great thing about your life as a young man is you got the power of the internet. You got guys like me who have verifiable backgrounds in careers and profession, who have been married and have life experience, is that you can look into your life 10, 15, 20 years into the future, and you can see the outcome for men who make certain decisions. You can see the outcome. You see it. It's right in your face. The outcome of men who make certain decisions. You can see what that fool who was popular, who was the class clown when he was 15, 14 years old, you can see how his life turned out. You can see that guy who measures his manhood and his masculinity and his self-esteem is based upon his ability to acquire used pre-owned box. But before we can get into the money aspect of things, we have to talk about the self-esteem and the discipline. Because what good is me talking about that? You're still going to end up broke and busted. Anyhow, if you don't have control over your D, or you don't have control over your emotions, especially for young men that have been growing up without strong masculine presence. And I'm not talking about it just because a guy like masculine, he could be an unconscious simp. Because I've seen a lot of dudes who display a certain level of what they perceive to be masculinity, but when it comes to women, they're complete jellyback simps. And they will basically compromise their manhood, their masculinity, and everything that makes men respectable just to have access because they were raised that way. So sometimes you're getting advice from your simp uncle, and he doesn't even know he's a simp. Or your simp father, and he doesn't even know he's a simp. And that's really the truth. Because he's been indoctrinated in programming a certain way. Or your mom, who's encouraging you to do certain things that only benefit women. In fact, she's probably a feminist herself. And she's telling you what you need to be doing for women. Because to her, women and feminism is first, and you are last. And almost like she's advocating for the gynocracy, and you're become a sacrificial animal for what's best for women, which is a programming that you have to go against. So it's a lot of systemic programming you have to go against to be successful in this system in the long term. So the question becomes, how do you handle, morning, how you doing? Short-term losses, okay? Short-term losses is how you handle short-term stresses. You're not going to be successful with the women short-term. You may not be popular short-term. You might be completely uncool, especially when you don't take part in materialism and place your value, good morning, how you doing, on your ability to look a certain way. You drive a certain car, you want to get a certain car because you think that's going to help you get the girls. You're wearing certain clothes because you want to fit in. Well, that particular resources and that money, even if you were just invested in like a Charles Schwab SWPPX or one of these other index funds or whatever else, that's probably what, $19 a share or one of the other things. If you took that money that you would be invested in trying to be accepted and trying to be cool, and you just open a Charles Schwab account, brokerage account, or investment account, and if you're working, you have a Roth, and there's other business avenues that you can get into. But if you start at a young age, putting that money away, not becoming, and you can resist the culture, I know it's hard because when you're a young man, your hormones are up. I mean, your hormones are pounding. And you want to get a hold of that pre-owned. But it's the idea that you're going to understand that in the short term, being unpopular or uncool is what you got to be. Like, for instance, I know the things that I say on this channel is uncool or unpopular with the culture. The unconscious simps don't like it. I may say one thing on this channel that offends somebody, and guess what? They unsubscribe. But to me, my mentality is kick rocks. If one thing I say on this channel offends you, then you really don't support the content or support the channel or support anything else because you're emotional like a female. Everything is not, I'm not talking about egregious things. I'm talking about like just something that just a mild disagreement. I'm not talking about a complete and total philosophical mindset and difference. I'm talking about just small things in life, that, because I can cut some people off for some changes in values when it's extreme, you know what I mean? Extreme differences in value. But in general, how you control your emotions and how you look at the culture and how you deal with people that want you to be a conformist. I think even the CGA talk about, salute the CGA, talk about normies. Like, people are uncomfortable with people who do things different. They don't like it because everybody wants everybody to be the same because it makes them feel good about their everyday life and existence. So the first thing you have to learn is that regardless of all the advice and information I can give you, that ability to master yourself, self-mastery, discipline, the ability to go against the grain, the ability to be unpopular, the ability to, stay alone in your own company and stand on principle, especially when you're following things that are going to make you successful long term. The ability to have the discipline to control yourself where you're not compromising your resources, your self-esteem, your self-worth to get access to pre-owned. We'll talk about the ladies more in terms of, sometimes it's taking care of your needs while staying on track to reach a certain level of freedom in your life or achieve certain goals financially. Because in the end, to be honest with you, nobody's going to take care of you like you. It really comes down to that. So all these people that you're trying to fit in with, they're not going to give a rat's ass about you if you don't have what you need to survive out here, especially as a man. If you think about it like this, if you failed in life or something happened to you, what do? They all virtue signal off your failure, talk about what a loser you are, or how stupid you are for making the decisions you are. The older you get, you're going to find out you're going to have less and less friends. So, less and less friends. So that's why I say be uncomfortable being unpopular. You're going to find out the people sometimes that you're talking to, are they talking to you because they have a genuine care and relationship to you, or are they just measuring themselves? They're listening to you, they listen to, your failures and whatever. At least I'm not as bad as him. And they're just measuring, and they're looking at your, what you're doing in life. And if it goes against the grain and you're doing self-improvement things, they'll discourage that, they'll sabotage that. You'll find that in women too. Some dudes are sleeping with the enemy right now. She basically has a chisel chipping away from the blocks of his own achievement and his goals and his excellence. She's just ripping away at his soul, destroying his self-esteem every day. So the critical thing for young men to understand is this: you have to divorce yourself from dysfunctional men who try to measure your masculinity and manhood, or define their manhood and masculinity by their ability to get pre-owned box, which is the equivalent of $30 on the streets, $50 on the streets. That's not a man with good, healthy self-esteem. Listening to a guy, well, I get all these women. Trust me, I always tell people in the channel, I don't need no box. I need me some money. Sex ain't nothing but a memory. Anything I could buy for under $100 shouldn't have no, or $1,000 to be honest with you. Any price shouldn't have no complete power and control over your life. And it's these small increments of things. And for you Gen Zers, if you have a parent that's willing to let you stay in their basement or in their house, help them out. Throw a couple dollars to them every month. Cut the grass. Be respectful. Don't come in all hours of the night. Take that money you making, and instead of buying ridiculous crap that try to make you accepted for a culture that doesn't give a rat's ass about you, dysfunctional culture, use that money, start slamming all that money into the markets. I don't care if you take 70% of that, because You want to get to the goal where you want to get that first 100,000 working for you while you sleep. Money makes money, man. And that's really what you got to take advantage of at that time and that opportunity while you have no responsibility and freedom to stack that dough. But that dough, it will go fast if you don't feel good about yourself. If you're not in love with your own company. If you listen to unconscious simp men, if you measure your manhood and your masculinity by your ability to get in women's pants, which makes me sick when these men do that. They'll call young men all kinds of incels and all this other nonsense. That's not incel. What the hell is that? Shit, I can solve an incel problem in 20 minutes. Here, dude, come over here. You come over here. Tone him up. And that's a solution. But what I can't solve is a fool, an idiot, an incompetent fool who can't fix anything, who can't do anything, who thinks his life is about talking slick game. An incompetent human being I can't do anything with. He's a useless human being. He doesn't add any value to the world, and that what can I do with somebody? What can you do with somebody who can't do anything? He can't fix anything. He has no skills, no talent. All he got is slick game. Yeah, that's why I don't care for these pickup game clowns. That's dysfunctional. That's for dysfunctional women and dysfunctional culture. You want to learn that shit? Look at their lives. They be up on that 5 baby mama child support life. Who wants to live that type of degeneracy? What man that is productive in this world got time to be sitting around in the middle of the night gaming some women? That's loser activity, man. I'll be honest with you. When you get to a certain point in life, you want leverage and power and self-esteem, and the self-esteem to protect it. That's what you really want. But anyhow, that's the thing you have to understand. It's not just the money, but the self-esteem to keep it, manage it, and not allow your feelings and your emotions to make you have you making stupid decisions to fit into the culture, to fit into people's, perception of you, or who you should be, or wearing certain clothes, expensive things, so that others in your neighborhood can feel a certain way about you. And even with me, I love old cars. That doesn't mean I can't buy a new car. I just enjoy them. But if I base the way I move on what the neighbors drive, but the neighbors, whatever. I don't care what they drive. That's their business. I do what I do, period. So I'm comfortable being extremely unpopular. Well, look at this channel. This channel was an example of me being uncomfortable being very unpopular, especially me. I'm an older guy. It took time to build that, but inevitably, that's what's going to make you successful long term, is how you feel about yourself, your own self-esteem. How do you feel about the man in the mirror is just as important as money. You see all these guys with money, you see the big ticket of situation. They can have money because they have certain extraordinary talent that they can use to make profit. But when they look at the mirror, they hate themselves. And that's what makes them make horrible decisions with women. We've all been there, but they make terrible decisions even with money. So you think that this guy's a athlete or whatever else, but really when he's alone, he hates his life. His self-esteem is in the toilet. And the culture itself really helps beat that self-esteem down into the ground. So anyhow, peace and blessings. I'm gonna pick up the pace, get my walk going. We'll talk soon, man.